show you how to install the actuators and brackets for a keyless entry or power door locks in your 67 through 69. This is a Firebird. It's the same for a Camaro. These work great with the alarms that we have for keyless entry, or you can also hook up a button and have just power locks inside the car. Okay, when you get ready to install your door lock actuators, you want to take your supplied template and you're going to tape it into place right here. You're going to push it up as far as you can without coming up. You want it to sit flat. And then you're going to take some masking tape and tape it onto the door. So that it sits and hangs just like this. And then you're going to take a 3/32 drill bit and you're going to drill each hole where it's marked. I'm going to adjust this a little before I start to drill, but you're going to take a 3/32 and drill at each one of these, and then you're going to take a 3/16 and drill it out to 3/16. Okay, I've got a 3/32 bit in my drill. I'm just going to line it up on the crosshairs. And we're going to take that bit out, put in our 3/16. And we can move the template out of the way. And then once you have your holes drilled, it'll look just like this. You're going to want to take a small file and clean up the back side of the holes just so that your bracket sits flush. From there you'll start to install. So here I've got our actuator, our bracket, our hardware laid out on the bench. I'm going to go ahead and put the actuator onto the bracket here on the bench just to make things a little easier. And then we'll go over to the car and install. Depending on the year model of your car, you'll use a different set of bolts for the bracket. This car is a 67, so we're going to use these lower ones. When we install the bracket, this one's going on the passenger side, so it'll go like this. We want to make sure that the actuator sits so that the smoother side of it, where the actual action happens, is to the end of the bracket, and this goes towards the inside of the bracket, if you will. All right, so here we have the actuator bolted onto the bracket. You can see the orientation again for the passenger side on this one. From here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the rod that hooks to the mechanism and loop it through. We're going to go ahead and loop it through just like this. And then we're going to go ahead and go over to the car, and then I'll show you how to install on the door. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is install this little clip here into that little hole that's right there below the locking mechanism, so that when you push the rod in, it'll clip the rod into place. So it just clips in. It's not too difficult to get to or anything. It's harder to video this for you guys than it is to actually do the process. So there it is, installed in there, and it'll spin, and when you put the rod in, it clips it in. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'll take my actuator, and it's going to sit in the door just like this, and you'll bolt these holes here to the holes that we drilled earlier. And I'm going to use my rod to help hold the actuator in place so that I'm not trying to hold the weight, get screws in there, and do all that sort of stuff. So I'm gonna set you guys down for just a second so I can get this turned and into place, and I'll show you then. Okay, now you can see I've got the rod installed into the mechanism. And then this clip just spins and clips onto the rod to hold it into place. And that will let the rod fall out. And now the actuator is actually hanging from that. And that'll help me hold it into place to put our hardware in to hold the bracket. And then here we have the hardware for the bracket. It's just a couple of screws, washers, and nuts. Simple to put in. You'll just slide them through here and then put the nut and the washer on the back. Give me just a second. I'll have these installed and I'll show you guys the final product. It can be a little difficult sometimes getting the holes to line up and reach around with your hand and get the nut and washer on, but mostly it's just a fill in with your hands and your fingers back there to get everything lined up and in place. It's not difficult, it just can be a little nuanced on the holding the nut and the washer behind the door because you also have your window mechanism. Okay, you can see I've got the screws in, and then the actuator is bolted in place with the bracket. The bracket's bolted in place. You can see the screws, the nuts here. I'm trying not to block too much of the light here so you guys can see everything. Then the rod goes up to the mechanism, and other than the wiring part, that's all there is to the mechanical part of it. I'm sorry I couldn't show you guys getting in here for the screws. There just wasn't enough room for the camera and light and my hands. But it's not hard. The one tip I would give you is have a screwdriver, hold the screw in place and just slide the washer on, and then hold the nut and use the screwdriver to get it started. And then once you've got it started, you can put a wrench back there fairly easily and tighten them down. There's just not a whole lot of room when you're trying to work in between this window track and get back in here. I found it easier to reach around the window track than through. Depending on how big your hands are, your mileage may vary on that. Okay, the next step is drill more holes in your car. Yay! Next thing is actually you're going to drill a hole through your door and then through the side over here for the wiring to go through. You want to be sure to use grommets so that you don't chafe your wiring and cut it and cause any shorts. The grommets we are using require a 1/2 inch hole, which seems big, but by the time you get the wires in some loom and taped up and stuff, it really is about right to do it nice and clean. We always do a pilot hole and then work our way up to the full size hole because a 1/2 inch hole is pretty good size. I will go ahead and start drilling holes and get you guys on the tripod. That way you can see that. Depending on how the drill lines up in this door, I may try to find a short drill bit or shorter drill. If you have some stubby drill bits or a drill that is a smaller head configuration, it does make it easier just because of the space confinements here in the door. Just a little tip, if you don't have them, you can still kind of work around it, or if you really wanted to, you could pull the door off to go from this side, to drill from this side real easily, but that's a lot more work, so we're gonna try and get it all done with the door on. Okay, I got an 1/8 inch drill bit in the drill here, and we're going to drill our hole right in here. And, I'm going to start with the, like I said, I'm going to start with the 1/8, and then I'm going to drill, probably going to step it up in about 4 bits, probably about an 1/8 inch or so at a time. I just find it makes a cleaner hole, and you're not trying to punch a huge hole through there. It just makes everything a little easier and a little cleaner to work your way up to it. So I'm going to start right about there. If you have a center punch to dimple it, it makes things stay still a lot better too. Okay, so I don't know how well you guys can see it or how good the light is, but we got our first little 1/8 inch hole punched. I'm gonna go grab a couple more bigger bits and I'll take it up the rest of the way, and then I'll show you guys the final product in that portion. Okay guys, I think you can see that hole pretty well now. I don't know how well this will show up on the camera, but there's just a little bit of push out where I drilled the hole, so I'm gonna take a small file and just clean that up just a little bit, and then we'll put our grommet in. Okay, we've got our grommet installed there. Try not to block light. And then, let's see, I think you can see it right there. So now we're just going to do the same thing in the door, and I'll get to fight my space constraints in there, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Okay, now that you've got it all bolted in, you can take your 2 wires and hook them to a 12-volt source to test to make sure your locks unlock and lock. Either direction will go one way and then the other will go the other. So there it locked, and if you hook up the wires the opposite direction, it should unlock. Perfect. All right, I've got a piece of wire loom on the wires here. We're going to use it to go through our grommets that I installed earlier. This is just to double up on the safety of the wires. You should be fine with just the grommets, but a little bit of loom to help protect them is never a bad idea. I've got it laid out where it goes across basically the bottom of the door, and I think I'm going to pull this just a little more. And right there should be pretty good. I'm going to pull a piece of electrical tape off, and you want to get a little bit on the wire itself to make sure that you don't let the loom move around. So we want to pull this a little bit tight so it shrinks the loom down a little bit. Like I said, get a little bit around the wire. Make sure that the loom won't move now, and it'll stay right there in place. And then you want to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm probably going to make a wrap right around the center just to help keep the loom a little bit tighter. So this piece is way too big for this, but it'll work. And this just helps so that when it goes through the grommets, it's as small as possible. This last one. Okay, and then from there, go back to the ends of our wires. Reach back up in here to our grommets. So you should just pull a little bit out so you can get a hold of it, and then put it back through the other side, and then you should just be able to pull it through the one and go through both. Real simple. It's real easy. It shouldn't have a hard time going through or anything. If you do choose to loom this like I did, you want the loom to go through both of your holes, both of your grommets. And I gave plenty of extra in the door, so I just kind of centered it up there. And now when the door opens and closes, the wire will push forward and be free of any possible slices. From here, you want to take your 2 wires, and you can either hook them to buttons in your dash or in your console, and you would be able to have lock unlock features in the car, or you can hook them to a keyless entry or alarm system and be able to use a remote. Okay, I'm back inside the door to show you another shot of the bracket. The whole point of this bracket is to make sure you don't have any hardware showing in your door skin, because you could hook up the actuator to your skin, but the problem is over time the actuator moving will bend the door skin, and then things won't close right, the actuator will begin to fail, the lock won't operate correctly. It'll cause a lot of problems. So by using this bracket and installing it right here, if you know anything about metal work, these dimples add a lot of strength to the metal. So this is a very hard, solid point to mount to, and it keeps everything still and in line so that everything works smoothly and you won't have any issues. So here's our door lock kit. We just installed this on our 1st gen Firebird. It comes with brackets, actuators, bars to go to your mechanism for your door, and the associated hardware. You can get this by itself, or you can add it on to one of our keyless entry packages or basic alarm packages. You can do this as keyless entry only or a very basic alarm, and then you can upgrade to our advanced alarm that gets a 2-way remote, a better sensor. Then we also offer tracking that you can use your phone with. There is a monthly fee with the tracking. That is an add-on package, but it goes straight to your phone and it uses a cellular network. And then we also offer a trunk release. Okay, so you saw us install all of this. In a future date, we're gonna show you some of the wiring and stuff, but today we just wanted to cover the mechanical parts of it. Remember, you can add these to an existing alarm, you can add it to one of our alarms, or you can add some buttons inside the car and just have power locks. Come see us at screamingchicken.com to pick this up, and we'll see you guys next week. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Adios.